Nurses of Reddit, what's the most entertaining thing someone has said coming off of anesthesia? Female patient after C-section asking me how many chickens she had, because she had beef with pig. A 15-year-old was waking up and talking more. And trying to get out of bed before he was ready. Bud, where are you going? I've got to go to my locker, buddy, you're in the hospital. You can't go to your locker right now. So where are you trying to go? Serious expression. A man asked me if his body parts still belong to him and I still think about it. LMAO. I work in the OR. Funniest was a guy quickly sat straight up after extubation. We're all standing around him making sure he doesn't try to jump off the table. He looks at me and then slowly gives me double finger guns. Turns his head to another staff member and slowly gives them finger guns. Didn't say a word, just finger guns. A lot of people wake up really crazy, they start swinging or just get really restless on a narrow or bed. It's nice when people wake up sleepy and I'll just bundle them up with blankies and roll out. My wife is a dentist, one of her patients started moaning loudly. Not the typical moans and groans, I mean like the really good sex moaning. It was loud enough that half the clinic heard, including the waiting area. We had to slide board a patient from the stretcher to his bed after an endoscopy. You put a board between bed and stretcher and then grab patient and slide them over to bed with sheet underneath them. My patient screamed "wee!" and then proceeded to tell us that these are the best drugs ever and that it felt like the 60s again. ER tech here. We often do conscious sedations with ketamine to realign broken bones. I had a 10-year-old girl who snapped her arm on the trampoline. When she was coming out of the ketamine slumber, she asked why she saw God. Little freaky. She also snarfed down 4 PB&J sandwiches after and I was impressed. The best has to be the sledding accident kid who snapped his tibia. When he was coming out of the ketamine sleep, he kept begging us not to tell his mom he smoked weed for the first time the day before. His mom was in the room while this was taking place. When I got my wisdom teeth out, the nurse was trying to wake me up and said, "Okay, it's time to open your eyes. Can you open your eyes for me?" I said, "Say please." Woke up thinking I'd had sex with my doctor. And apologized to him for how bad it was. Guy wakes up in the recovery room after left knee replacement surgery and starts talking with his wife, "Well, at least I still have 2 good knees." "Oh honey," she replied, "you just had knee surgery." He interrupts in a loud voice, "My right knee and my weena." When I was in high school I was just getting put under and feeling loopy for a wisdom teeth operation and the nurse was making small talk with me and told me she graduated from the same high school I went to and was on the dance team and I told her no you weren't, you have to be pretty to be on the dance team right before blacking out. I think about this sometimes before I go to sleep at night. Nurse, I am so sorry to do you like that when you were just doing your job. A friend of mine woke up after surgery and stated, "I want to eat a Christmas tree." I had a male patient who as he woke up mumbled, "I'm not pregnant." Not a nurse, but I had dental surgery at a hospital in Bangkok a few years ago. I had pretty much come out of anesthesia and was just waiting for the doctor and discharge stuff. There was this giant Aussie guy also in recovery and he kept trying to sneak away. Like he'd look around, grab his 4-pole, and tiptoe toward the exit. The nurses were just kind of herding him around the room back to his bed. Then he'd do the same thing again. The nurse with me asked if I wanted the curtains closed and I was like, hell no. I just had major oral surgery and this is funny. So she and I sat there for nearly 20 minutes watching his shenanigans. Nurses have patience like saints, I swear. My brother got his wisdom teeth out not too long ago. When he woke up, he started laughing a lot, like he wasn't laughing super hard, but he was laughing for super long and it almost sounded monotone. Did a short stint in recovery as part of my graduate program. I got proposed to a couple of times. Same guy would walk past me in the corridor a day later and not recognize me. I once told the nurses to stop, I wasn't asleep yet. I wasn't ready. They laughed and said they were done. Another time I came out saying sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy has nuts, mounds don't. No clue why I was singing this, but the nurses thought I was hilarious and let family know this happened. I was briefly put under for a endoscopy. When I came to, I cried and my nurse was so sweet to me. I kept asking if I died and then thanked her for not letting me die, and she was so sweet and legit held me for a minute. Not anesthesia but post-op in ICU. PT had brain surgery for a neuroma. He had a brain drain in but otherwise was fine. Me, hi sir, I have your dinner, do you need help? PT, nah, I can do it. What is it? Me, whitefish. PT, ugh. Me, it's brain food. PT, if that's the case I need a whale. I laughed for 2 hours after that. It wasn't something he said, but I had a patient in his 50s attempt to motorboat his wife when she came to pick him up. She was mortified, and I managed to keep a straight face while giving her all his post-op instructions. Also not a nurse, but I had ankle surgery last year. They gave me animal crackers after, and I remember being really upset that I didn't realize until the last cracker that I forgot to look at the animals and appreciate each one. Not a nurse. My wife woke up from a surgery and started pointing into the middle of the room and in a soft voice said, you, and you. What's that smell? She then looked over at me and says, when did you get here ya asshat lol. She doesn't cuss much, so I got a good laugh out of it. Backstory, my grandmother desperately needed a hip replacement. She didn't want the surgery, but it had reached the point where my grandfather couldn't care for her unless she got it, and had to give her the ultimatum to either have the surgery or move into assisted living, something she absolutely did not want. She had some onset of dementia, so everyone was extremely worried about what the anesthesia would do to her mental condition. After surgery, they were asking her questions to see if the anesthesia had affected her cognitive functions. My grandfather asked, "Do you know who I am?" And her response was, "You're the dirty rotten little so-and-so who did this to me," as she pointed at her leg. Oh, she had also named both her stuffed cat and her cane George. Anyone else she didn't immediately recognize by name while the anesthesia wore off was also dubbed George. There is nobody in our family named George. When my brother got home after his wisdom teeth, he was on the couch in the TV room laughing, and when we asked what he was laughing, he said that this was the funniest show ever. Kinda long, sorry. I worked in an ER and we had a patient, guy about 18 to 20 years old, who had a spontaneous pneumothorax, collapsed lung. Not quite as bad as it sounds, he basically had a small area of air between his lung and chest wall. We had to put in a small chest tube to remove the air. We did a moderate sedation, basically kinda knock him out but not put him completely under. One of the meds used was Versed, which has an amnesic effect, so they don't remember anything. Procedure is done and I'm monitoring him when he starts coming around. He looks at me and asks, "So, when are we going to do this thing?" I said, "We're already done. Look at your chest, had a drain/dressing in place." He looks down, then looks at me and says, "Dude. How'd you do that?" I came out of it in the middle of a conversation with Gandalf. I was trying to sell him Tupperware. So I am a nurse, but my favorite coming out of anesthesia story was my husband's. I went back to see him in recovery and he was super eager to leave and was trying to remember where he parked, and I said, "Don't worry babe, I'll bring the car around." "You know where the car is?" "I do, I drove us here." "You drove us here? Oh my god, you drove us here? Thank you. You're welcome, I was happy to do it." "Oh my god, you drove us here. Oh wow." He was close to tears at this point. I took him to lunch after and he nodded off while staring intently at a novelty salt shaker. My favorite while I was working was a man who woke up from a double great toe amputation and was super worked up about how he was going to wear flip-flops until I suggested he try out slides instead. Patient here with a great story nonetheless. When I got my wisdom teeth removed, I apparently had a religious experience. I'm agnostic. I told my mom, who was with me, that I saw people walking on water. Next, I kept telling her that I saw Jesus. Apparently, when the female nurse came back into the room, I did the Catholic sign of the cross and whispered to my mom, "That's him. That's Jesus." The nurse lost her shit. Not a nurse, but my twin sister started speaking fluent Spanish to my mom after she woke up from getting her wisdom teeth removed. We're half Puerto Rican, on our mom's side, so we've grown up hearing Spanish, but neither of us had ever carried a fluent conversation with her in it. But apparently my doped up sister could. Patient here went on a long rant about how Bugs Bunny appeared in my dreams and told me lies. No idea how my brain came up with that one. Did you fancy up my a little bit, said to me, the post-op RN, after patient's vasectomy. Me, coming out of it at the dentist's office, me, you have to save them. Dentist, save who? Me, the owls. Dentist, what owls? Me, the owls trapped inside the gas machine, they were hooting, I could hear them. You have to save them. I was coming out of anesthesia and the nurses in the recovery room were all poking fun at each other about which Hogwarts house they would be in. Me, according to my ex-wife, I'm a house elf. Not a nurse, but was in charge of my sister after she got her wisdom teeth out. Got her in the car and she was bawling. Wouldn't stop crying and trying to put her fingers in her mouth. Mind you, she was 20 at the time. I got her back to my apartment, and she's having a hard time staying upright, so I'm helping support her as we walk up to the door. She's still crying, but is now trying to do a heel click. We almost fall over. My neighbor sees us and runs over to help open my door. We get her inside. She then proceeds to spend another hour crying about how she wants to write a Harry Potter/Pride and Prejudice crossover ballet, in which she would play Dumbledore, Lizzie Bennet, and Mr. Darcy herself. I then asked her who I would play. She said Hedwig and Mr. Collins. That's when it stopped being entertaining. Edit, thank you for my first Reddit award. Had my appendix out and according to my wife the doctor came around with a bunch of student doctors and pulled my gown to the side to show the keyhole scars. Now the bottom one is below the pants line and I wasn't wearing underwear and apparently I said don't act like you're not impressed, then closed my eyes. They all had a good laugh, my wife was mortified and I was sound asleep, still hear about it from her almost 10 years later. At the dentist I woke up like a shot from anesthesia, got up, and ran through the office. Dental assistants chasing me. I ran to the washroom, still drugged up, looked into the mirror and while pawing my numb face said I need to make sure I don't look like Joan Rivers. I'm a nurse, am 26, and I take care of kids. After surgery this little girl said, slurred, "Whoa. A real leprechaun? I have red hair." Obligatory not a nurse, but a friend of mine said that one of her patients was convinced he was a burrito and needed her to sprinkle cilantro on him. Edit, OMG my first gold. Thank you. Answering as someone coming off of anesthesia while in the middle of surgery. I tried a dog biscuit too. In response to my surgeon telling his colleague how he had to eat a dog biscuit while pledging. Another time I squeaked like a dolphin while in the middle of surgery. Kinda weird, I remember doing it and my surgeon was freaked out that I knew I did it. Not sure if it counts, but during a C-section I was drugged up to the heavens, I shouted it hurts. I couldn't actually feel anything, surgeon panicked and said what does it feel like? I said Not a nurse, but when I got all 4 of my wisdom teeth out at once, I woke up and immediately asked can I eat KFC now? And they all got a laugh out of that. That was the only thing I cared about. Probably not as entertaining as I hoped, but I got a laugh out of them, so yay. Edit, I just noticed some wording issues. Also yes, I did get KFC after. Just a large mashed potato and mac and cheese. Took me 3 days to finish it all though. Middle-aged woman with obvious surgical enhancements coming off of anesthesia from a diagnostic procedure. I was listening to her lungs with my stethoscope and told her all right, nice big breaths. She said thanks, I just got them done. My grandmother gets very angry when she comes out of anesthesia and swears everyone abused her during surgery. The night after her hip surgery, and lots of angry accusations and having to be tied to the bed for a good portion of the day, I spent the night with her at the hospital. She had a confusing and restless night and was in a lot of pain, but very out of it. The next day, the doctor came in to talk to her about being moved to the rehab center. She started ranting about how it better not be the same place she slept last night because they made her sleep on the concrete floor of a barn. Everyone tried reasoning with her, but she would just point at me and say, "Ask that girl. She was there." After a few minutes of increasingly agitated ranting, I just said, "It's a different place, Nanny." And that settled that. Anesthesia hits my family pretty hard. Low vitals, takes longer to wake up, it can be pretty scary for my mom, who is usually the caretaker. Last winter I had an endoscopy and wasn't waking up. It took a while for me to gain awareness after I did arise, and the first thing I remember is asking my mom for pancakes. She responded with a worried "I know, well get pancakes later once you're up to it." I was convinced that she had been reading my mind, and was very concerned about her new psychic abilities until they told me I'd been awake for about 30 minutes, and had asked for pancakes at least 10 times before I regained awareness. Not a nurse, but I underwent a procedure and had to be put under anesthesia. According to my dad, who was in the room, the doctor asked me how I was feeling and I said to him, "I feel like shit. Can I go back to hell?" Not really funny I guess, but it was funny at the time. Not a nurse, but after I got my wisdom teeth out I was convinced I was Clark Kent and kept taking my glasses off and mumbling I'm Superman. And then I cried when they told me they were going to put my teeth in the incinerator because for some reason drugged me thought they meant all my teeth. Not a nurse, but I woke up from surgery pissed because the anesthesiologist told me he was just giving me oxygen, but then next thing I knew I woke up in post-op. "Drink this juice." Young me, oh fine, drinks it, falls asleep in under a minute. Me after surgery, "Mum, why are you laughing? You told the nurse that she was a naughty girl and that you would call Dad to punch her." This was the weirdest thing a nurse said to me as I was coming off of anesthesia. I had a baby that died. I had 4 children but only 3 of them lived. I was rushed into the hospital with extreme pain and tons of internal bleeding, and then they found out I had an ectopic pregnancy that had ruptured my fallopian tube, which was a strange surprise. I had barely had any encounter resembling the kinds that get you pregnant, but I guess one crazy sperm managed to get up my tubes despite the lack of reproductive behavior. I hadn't even missed a period or anything. They zoomed me into surgery and gave me lots of drugs. It was a huge relief to have the emergency resolved, and I didn't really actually think of myself as pregnant with a baby. I mostly just thought I am dying. Holy shit, they actually know what the is wrong with me and they are gonna fix it with drugs and medicine and shit. Hallelujah. I'm not going to die. Post-surgery I woke up quite disoriented and alone with a very kind older nurse woman who promptly told me she once lost a baby. I was very confused for a long while. I really hadn't even processed that I had been pregnant or lost a baby, so I didn't realize she was trying to comfort me by sharing a shared loss. I just thought that this nurse decided to randomly tell me her baby died as I woke up alone in a room with her, and I was like, "Oh, that's terrible, you poor stranger lady. I'm so sorry your baby is dead. Why are you telling me this?" But in retrospect, how sweet that she tried to be kind. Thanks, nurse lady. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content every day.